Start our cool little intro.
You should have some awesome sound effects.
Yeah, we'll work on a intro, like some sort of like news, something cool. All right. All right, let's turn that off. Welcome everybody to another episode of our Workflow Wednesday. This week's pretty cool. I'm really excited for this one because there's the endless possibilities of this side of the industry. We're joined by John. I'm sorry. How do you pronounce your last name?
Nierras, or
Nierras.
Spanish, just Nierras.
Nierras. Awesome.
You got to do the R's.
Thank you. Thank you. John Nierras, creative director at Perfect Infinitives.
Yes.
I feel like there's a little more to it than just that. So for people who don't already know, go ahead and give yourself a little introduction and some background on what you do.
Well, my name is John Nierras. My initial background is in visual effects and design, but lately I moved to more in the creative development, research and development space. So I created a company called Perfect Infinitives, which is basically dedicated to like a laboratory of some sort to design basically anything that's creative visually and taking technologies that exist today and try to twist them into something that never has been done before, basically. So creating workflows for it.
Oh, neat. Okay. And so just before the stream, we were kind of talking about a few things, in particular, how you were talking about controlling the robot arms and things inside of Maya. Good. Give us a little bit more. Like, how did that come about? Where did that start from, and how did you get so deep into that?
So there was a studio that I worked with here in Los Angeles who decided to just buy a robot, just because the thing is we're trying to find a way to have a studio in which no one has ever done before, or basically a tabletop studio in which people want to have in the future. So he decided to just buy a robot, because that's one thing not all studios have, is an industrial robot in their studio. So my task was to try to find software to control it. Because the thing is, there is no such thing as anyone who could just buy these robots and just play with it. They're just big paperweights, right? In the end, it's just like, okay, how can we control it? So I went around, talked to a lot of people out there and just say, hey, is there any way you can control these robots? 1 year down the road of me exploring and writing code here and there is the guys from Autodesk Labs. Decided to make a plugin for Maya called Mimic for Maya. So if you guys want to check it out, it's mimicformaya.com. So what it is that it would allow you to animate an industrial robot. So you animate a robot in Maya and send it to your robot controller, and the controller would just do exactly what you just did. So from that point, we started shooting commercials. And it's like, okay, what can we do with this robot that no one else can do? And my point is, a lot of people do have these robots, like the high-end film industry.
Okay.
Like Mr. Moko, Motorized Precision. They have some awesome robots and some awesome software that they have controlled with. But the thing is, it's expensive, right? And the thing is, for these kind of robots, is that you need a lot of infrastructure, a lot of money in order to get into it. And what Mimic for Maya allowed people to do is you can buy your own robot, create something in Maya for a really cheap price. Yeah.
Oh, I had a bit of a blip there. Could you say that again? I'm not sure that went out.
Yeah. My screen froze too.
So you can buy a robot, and then what?
You can buy a robot for a very cheap price, and then you can control these robots, basically.
Nice.
And the nice thing about it is that you don't need some proprietary piece of software, because all you need now is Maya.
Nice.
And the nice thing about Mimic for Maya is that the plugin is for free.
Oh, that's definitely good. Yeah.
And most any studio working in visual effects already is using Maya anyways. So
Oh, cool. Right on. So what I suppose what can this do that I suppose just throwing more people at the problem couldn't solve? Did that come out right? Yeah.
Well, it's not about that. It's just about precision, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
for example, if you're doing something in high speed, or if you want to take a shot of like a very intricate piece of equipment, or like a watch, right? You want to do like those Apple Watch commercials, and you really want to get really into this really deep framing. The hard part of that is that if you have a follow focus guy, it's like, okay, let me try to get that frame. Okay, now do that exact same thing for the next shot.
Oh, wow.
Can't do that. So if you do this with a robot, it's like you exactly have the same shot in exactly the same way again and again and again. So the error rate is pretty much like it's gone.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Ah!
So I've seen I think I've seen something similar to this in so Corridor Digital has like this VFX artist reacts thing, and they'll I can't remember the term that they use, but it's I think it's got to be similar to what you're talking about. They've got the camera on. It looks like an industrial robot arm, and they'll film a scene like a clean plate with a track, and then they'll do it again with people in the way and things like that over and over. And it's like and so that's kind of what this is for.
Yeah, you could do multiple passes. So that's another workflow that you can do, multiple passes. Another workflow you can do is that you can do like stop motion. Another workflow you can do is that you can have multiple robots do some weird things at the exact same time. There's a lot of multiple workflows that you can do with these kind of robots, because the thing is, it's just like now you're freeing yourself to be creative. But you can actually see this before actually doing it on set. It's like all these multiple personalities. Like, okay, I need a lighting scene. Okay, so I could create a lighting scene in Maya or in my studio, and then after that have multiple different passes. So like, oh, the client probably might want white, but I need to have the same move. So a robot can do the same thing, same move, same focus, same. Yeah, so you have these multiple plates with, like how they did Multiplicity back in the day, that movie. So same thing, but it's so accessible that you can do this with Maya. And for me, it's like the nice thing about doing this kind of workflow is that I could have multiple artists working in the background. And so it's like, which one has the best camera move? And I could just pick one. And they're from all over the world, right? They don't have to be in the same space, but they could be all over the world and just say, oh, that's an awesome camera move. Can you send that to me via email? Oh, yeah, here you go. Bam. Wow. Play that move with my robot and call it done.
Yeah. And if you need to make a change, it's a simple, just a couple curves, and now you have a slightly different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I saw one of the examples you had on the Mimic from Eyesight was one arm controlling a camera, another arm holding like a miniature spaceship. I think it was the Millennium Falcon. And so like that can be doing a physical miniature doing movements and a camera controlling movement around that too. And then put that together later. And there's so many things you could do with this.
Wow.
Yeah. So with Millennium Falcons or like a spaceship scene or anything that you can think of, I mean, you can have like a bunch of these multiple robots as if you're literally playing with a toy, right? It's like, oh, look at this. Oh, we could do this. And then the nice thing about that, what I've done before is that I actually use Unreal to do a lot of my workflows, because hand animating these things can be a little time consuming, right? For animators out there, it's like, well, what is the fastest way to animate something? Oh, use your hand. You could do this, or you could move this. And literally what I did one time is that I put a vibe tracker on my hand and just moved it around and send that same information to a robot, and the robot actually did what my natural movements were.
Oh, wow.
That's so cool.
And that to people, it's like, oh my gosh, we just did a move in 2 seconds. That would have taken an animator like a good 2 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it could be a hand move a camera, you could do a hand move a play set and everything like that. So for people who are doing miniatures, or what in the industry is like the bigatures, like miniatures
like 1/3 scale stuff.
20 feet big and everything like that, you can actually control this with a robot.
Wow.
and then using Unreal to do your lighting, to do your backgrounds. And like I said, with Unreal is that I could set my robot's position into Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
And then therefore I don't need a lot of these trackers, because
Right.
now the robot knows where it is in world space,
Mm-hmm.
because a robot can move 20 degrees, and then that 20 degrees, by Cartesian plays, basically it's the same thing. It's 20
Mm-hmm.
degrees on rotation.
Yeah. Wow. That is super cool. Is this mostly just for? I notice a lot of like the images and stuff are kind of for those big giant, or they look giant industrial robots. Like I keep coming back to the image of like those big yellow arms you see putting cars together.
Yeah.
Does this apply to other sorts of things too? Like, could we get it smaller or?
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of robots out there.
Oh,
Most of the robots that the first robot I used is basically a 3-foot reach arm. So this is as high as like up to my waist, that kind of a thing.
yeah.
And there's other robots like universal robots that literally is just the size of your desk. So they come in multiple different sizes. The bigger you go, of course, the bigger the shot you get, or the smaller you go, you could do miniatures.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of the people out there with robots tend to go for the bigger ones, just because, like, hey, it's not just a tabletop I could do. I could actually use it for, shoots.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. But yes, you can go for a robot that's like this small, or there you go, that's this small, and then to a point to like the size of a refrigerator.
Wow.
And this is the funny part, is that when you look at samples of motion control, a lot of people, when they think of motion control, is that let's just do high-speed cameras. They would literally put a high-speed camera underneath this thing, because a robot can actually move faster than a human.
Sure.
And exactly the same way, right?
Right.
And that's why a lot of the samples you see out there are like just with phantom cameras. What I try to explain to people is that these are not just robots that can do very fast moves, but very accurate and very smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it as the ultimate Steadicam guy.
Yeah.
They can move around very smoothly. So it doesn't have to be fast.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. What's your favorite so far? It feels like this is still fairly somewhat new. So what's your favorite application of this so far?
So far is that I've done a couple shoots in which I did a commercial one time, in which, before COVID that was, right? It took about 40 people in one room to do a shoot, right? To do a simple commercial shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your cameraman, you have your AC, you have your DP, you have basically, there's about 10 people around a camera, like one simple camera. It's like I have a guy that literally, his job was to press record. And that's his job, was just to press record. The other guy's just doing the focus.
Okay.
And it's just like, oh my gosh. And then if we want to move our camera from one location to the other location, that would take another 20 to 30 minutes. We had to dismantle the camera, put it in a location, then, assemble it again. It just took forever. So my favorite application to this is basically, think of it as the robot can always stay in the one place.
Okay.
Like I could move it in any way I want. It could be your ultimate dolly guy. It could be your ultimate Steadicam. So we don't have to take this camera out from a tripod to something. So it can be a Steadicam. It could be a dolly. It could be a slider. So it's this application of an all-in-one use, to say. It's like a Swiss Army knife of a camera gear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Really cool.
basically, we did a commercial that usually you max about 15 shots per day, because you have to take out the camera, stuff like that, to doubling that to 30 shots in one day, just because everything was streamlined around a robot.
That's so cool. Imagine too, it takes less people. Like you're saying, there's one guy to push record, one guy to focus, and so like the robot arm can just handle all of that kind of together, right? You just
Pretty much, it's all automated. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
focus is automated. The moves are automated. The only thing that's not automated, of course, are the actors, right?
Sure.
Right.
But the nice thing about this one, another thing that I found is that, especially if you're dealing with kids commercials, right, is that when a kid is acting and you have like 30 people looking at him or her, they get a little scared.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But if all of us are away in another room and just have a robot with that kid, they tend to be a little more natural. And it's not just a kid that we just found out. Like we found out with adults too. Is that there's no 30 people that's trying to judge him or her in their acting.
Right.
It's not just it's not just, it's now just a robot. It's just doing all the moves. And the nice thing is that if they're like acting and moving at the same time, the problem is with humans also, and this is just going back, in history, is that when you're trying to do gestures, when you're trying to talk to someone, you tend to look at someone's eye and just like, okay, I'm going to wait for you. Now I'm going to wait for you. I'm going to wait for you. I'm going to wait for you. So when you have a cameraman and an actor, they're kind of waiting for each other.
Yeah.
But if a robot always does the same thing, it doesn't have to wait. So the actor knows when to move, when to act, because that robot always does the same thing again and again and again.
Nice. I was,
It's like everyone agrees. I was like, okay,
it's really neat. It's well, because like it was kind of mind blowing too, because like I was kind of locked up on just the camera part, but you'd also mentioned like you could attach like a miniature to this, and like and then you can have your own little natural movements and things like that. And I'm just thinking of I don't know. I just kind of got a little overloaded with some of the ideas. I know also you kind of I saw a mention of real-time visual effects as part of your background. And so what is that exactly? I might have my own kind of preconception, but just what do you mean by that?
So one of the biggest things that I want to do since I started this whole visual effects industry is to kill green screens forever. That's one thing. It's like, I swear, every time I get a shot from a studio, and it's like, okay, great. I got to turn on my computer, look at the green screen, and it's just like everything is uneven, and I have to roto things out. It just takes forever and ever and ever. So one of the things that, of course, what a lot of people are trying to do today is that the whole Mandalorian setup, right? You have the big LED screen in the background. So therefore, all the shots that you have is pretty much in camera now. So that's a nice thing. To me, that's almost real-time visual effects. The other thing that people don't realize too, like what Unreal is trying to do, like destruction, like things breaking apart, like when you throw a bowling ball to a building, it blows up. So that's one thing that Unreal is trying to do more often, is that how can we get lighting, physicality, or anything that's destruction, like a lot of these big Marvel movies, we want to see things blow up. Sure. How can we actually do that in screen and at the same time in physical sets so actors can actually see what they're actually acting from or acting with? So, I mean, that's actually happening right now already, but it's still in its infancy stages. So right now, what the Mandalorian is doing, like what you see with their shows, you notice that the background is always like a scene, right? So nothing blows up yet. Yada yada yada, except for the special scenes that when people actually have to roto stuff again.
Sure.
But the some of those core scenes are pretty much like, let's just get everything in camera.
Sure.
Let's just put a big LED screen with a background set right there, and then move things around.
It seems at this point it's almost a like digital matte painting, right?
Yes.
Like, the far distant stuff where it's just like somebody actually watercolored that together. Wow, to think that they'll have like an entire like physically simulated scene in the background like that could be pretty cool. I think it'll be.
It's getting there. I mean, the thing is, like right now, Unreal is pushing the boundaries to say.
Sure.
But the thing is, like when you're trying to do like destruction, like things blowing up, like a car flipping, those are all physical elements, and not just physical elements, but like simulation in a computer. And if you think about a computer that's trying to simulate destruction at the same time trying to simulate the scene and the winds, the trees moving back and forth, that's a lot of polygons that it has to render.
Yeah.
So that's just right now. It just takes forever to do that. It's not in its prime time state yet.
Right.
Okay.
because on these big LED screens, you're thinking about like close to 16,000 pixels that you're trying to push. And if you're doing simulations like wind moving and dust storms and something blows up or whatever, it's just you're gonna lose your frame rate from 24 to like 10 to 5. It's like, oh, what happened to the background? Oh yeah, sorry.
Well, I think that's where another place that this robotic arm comes into be very useful is that you can then animate that for the filming on the Unreal set that day. And then if you have some post-production going on to add in those visual effects on top of the screen, you have that exact animated camera movement in Maya. So you can then do some explosions or whatever, and the camera's in the right spot already.
Yes.
And you just saved yourself a lot of time trying to match perspectives and camera stuff, because the camera, I'm assuming, I know in Unreal you can match the physical camera to the Unreal camera.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing in Maya.
Yes.
So the lens effects and everything are all built in. So yeah, I can see where this arm would be a good middle ground for some of that stuff. In addition to all the other cool things you can do with it.
Yeah.
No, well, the nice thing about these robot arms with Unreal is that, like you said, I can literally send that information to Maya in an instant. Also using Unreal's live link to say, so you can literally send motion control data from Unreal to Maya into your robot back again in real time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the things that we're trying to do right now is that what I wanted to do is basically usually using like a hand stick and moving that back and forth and then sending that information to Maya, and that Maya will send that information to Unreal. And then you do exactly what you just are doing. So if I'm at home and I kind of want to do my camera move to say, but I'm like halfway around the world and the set and whatever, blah, blah, blah is here in LA. At least I can grab a Vive puck at home, send that information to Maya, that my information will send to Unreal in their studio, and the robot will exactly do what I just did at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like as much as the COVID thing has kind of ruined life for a lot of people, especially in the film industry, it really hurt. I feel like it really lit a fire on just a lot of these alternatives. Like you were saying, I could be halfway around the world and I can still control the camera someplace in a warehouse in Hollywood somewhere. And on top of that, you've got you could have like some actor in their garage with like a green screen volume, and they can be inserted into a video, and it's all the remote possibilities have just gotten so expansive. It's so cool.
Yeah,
it's so true. I mean, to say in a way, I'd say that COVID-19 has a silver lining to say into this whole bit. I mean, as much as it kind of killed the industry for a short amount of time in a way, at the same time, it brought out a lot of this cool technology that people have been wanting to use ever since then. Volume capture is another one thing that, a lot of industries had volume captures, but, it's like, why do we really need a volume capture? We could just have an actor right now. But with COVID-19, it's like, I can't have an actor next to this actress more than 6 feet away, so how can they act at the same room?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, we can do a volume capture. There you go. Put that person on volume capture. It's kind of like The Fly. Remember, like The Fly? They could actually.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So those kind of things. It pushed a lot of the boundaries.
Yeah.
The whole robotics in my end, it's just like all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls left and right saying, how soon can we get a robot in our studio?
Wow, that's cool.
To make it. Yeah.
You don't have just a warehouse of them sitting around a showroom.
Darn.
I mean, I saw recently the Video Game Awards that just happened. I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
They showed a behind the scenes shot of like the sound stages they used, and they had these different fenced off areas for different positions. So like this area is for the the DP or whatever, and this area is for whatever. And if they had used an arm like this, you could have an area for your camera operator. He sits in this area, separated from everybody else. The camera's, on the other side of the sound stage, but can still control everything, make whatever adjustments they need to do, and still stay safe. Like it's
Yeah. So there are a lot of broadcast applications that's another part of Perfect Infinitives that I do a lot of live events. So corporate live events down to like concerts and everything. So there are toys already in which you can control everything with a joystick and everything like that.
Oh, wow.
But one thing that a lot of these cameras don't have yet is a articulated arm. Like things that you can move in and out and moving things around in a lot of these cameras are pretty static. It could pan, it could tilt.
Right.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like, all right, add a motion control arm onto that thing. Now you just have not just like a robot that can actually do a lot of these things. Now you can have a robot that is articulated like an arm.
Much better camera movements than just, all right, this is our camera that's going to pan left or right. That's all this camera does. And then if you want a close shot, you got to switch to this camera. Now we can have it move wherever, pan wherever.
Yeah, that is really neat. I can't. Now you gotta combine the arm with like the spot robot dog from Boston Dynamics, and then it can just go. I can go all over the place, anywhere.
Yeah. Oh no, I've had some thoughts about the Boston Dynamics dog. One of the main things that I wanted to do with a spot a long time ago was have you guys ever been to a concert, like a live concert before COVID-19?
Yeah.
Is that, do you ever wonder how they actually created those stages? That's a lot of man hours worth of work.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things I wanted to do for a robot dog is to run cables from one section to the other side of the section. When we create stages, it's funny because we would run like Cat 6 wire and also like fiber wire. And this is not just like from the stage all the way to the control station. We have to go to the other side, which is like 5 miles long, right? To the broadcast truck, that's like another 10 miles. Like, okay. And imagine a person's like, all right, get your bike and just ride all the way down there.
You're right.
But a robot dog, it's like, okay, here you go, hook it up and move. All right.
That's pretty cool. Wow. I'm curious too. So what are some of the applications that Mimic from Maya doesn't work?
What applications? I don't know. I mean, I think the right now is real time.
Okay.
Right now it's pretty much still like I create a move and then take that move and put it into a robot. We are working on something much more real time than that right now, but at the current iteration as of today, basically you create a move in Maya offline, kind of like an offline online edit.
Okay.
You do it offline, send it to the robot, and the robot will exactly do what you just did.
Okay.
And is that a limitation of the robot just not being developed to be used in real time?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, robots, especially in factories, because we are taking something from a factory, like a car factory, to something that you want to do something out of natural movements. The robots weren't designed to do that. They weren't designed to do full real-time hand articulation into a robotic servo, that does all that. It's a little too complicated, but it can do it. I broke a few robots already in which I tried doing it.
Oh, that's cool. Right on.
Well, I feel like it's one of those things. It wasn't designed to do that because no one had ever wanted to do that. And
there were people. There were people. Sorry, there were people doing that, but the technology wasn't there yet.
Yeah, and now that there's going to be a much bigger demand, just due to the push towards virtual production or actual production with using these other technologies that are coming out. There's gonna be a much bigger demand for, hey, we want this arm, but we want to use this arm like with a joystick and run it real time.
Yes.
I'm sure all this stuff will come out pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Unreal wasn't designed to do most of the stuff it does right now, but that didn't stop people from trying it.
No, yeah.
So are there different arms then for different, or is it all just kind of the same robot?
No, there's a couple different arms, but most of the arms that you see that's popular are the 6-axis arms.
Okay.
Basically, it's the same size, or basically it's just how your hand moves, right? It has 6 axes. Your wrist, your fingers, and everything like that. So yeah, so basically the way your whole arm works is a 6-axis arm robot. But yeah, that's the most, let's just say, accessible today.
Yeah,
you can buy one on eBay right now for $5,000. So
that's all. That's not that, I would have thought, considering the industrial application of it, I would have thought it'd be more expensive. $5,000. You drop that on a camera body, without blinking. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the small ones, I don't know, like the desktop size ones. Yeah, for $5,000, you could get a robot.
Hey, have you as this has progressed? Have the people who make these arms, are they at all interested in I suppose implementing some more changes to that you guys might need for this sort of thing? Is it a good relationship there?
Yeah. So there's a couple of robots out there. Mainly KUKA is one of the big robot factories out there in the world today. And they've been looking at the entertainment industry for the longest time. Actually, they're one of the first robots out there that did a lot of the cool shots that you probably would see today. That's done in visual effects, like the movie Gravity. They used KUKA robots for that.
Oh,
yeah. So Sandra Bullock was actually on a harness. And the robot was moving her, and then the other robot is moving an LED screen so you could get real-time reflections.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And so they're, I'm on their website and it's making chat noises at me. Look up the KUKA robots. And so they're kind of interested in kind of improving their product for this application.
Oh, yeah. So, they've been looking at the entertainment industry for quite a while. One of the bigger robots out there too, called Stubli robots. Basically, they kind of perfected a robot meant for cinema that can go really, really fast. Like literally, this robot can move from 6 feet in a matter of 1 second.
Wow.
Or less than a second. It's just that fast. Like whoop, whoop. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's pretty cool. Wow. That is really neat. I'm curious, where do you see the future of this headed? Like, I imagine production crews are going to get smaller if the robot can fill a lot of these holes and things. What else? What other future changes do you see coming from this?
Well, basically for broadcasts.
Okay.
I see a lot of these things in the broadcast industry and like the live theater industry and everything like that too. The nice thing is that, yes, you can control these robots from a remote section. That kind of a thing. Also for the film industry, I would say like the whole remote section is that I could be in a separate place right now, and I don't have to be in studio to do a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I would see all these robots. Like you're slimming down a crew, but at the same time, you are gaining a lot of employment because now a lot of people need to learn how to use these robots. Sure. And right now, there's not a lot of people know how to actually control a robot. Mm-hmm. So if you know how, I'm telling you, there's going to be a big demand of that.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be called the creative roboticists. So remember back in the days, like motion graphics wasn't a thing yet. Now it became a thing. So
right on. So learn Maya, everybody. Okay.
Right on. Yeah, learn Maya.
How does I guess I had a thought, but then I kind of lost it there for a second. I'm sorry. I was curious how. So I'm coming from a very limited education on a lot of this sort of thing. So I'm curious how, I guess just how Maya ties in with other products in this space to make this happen. Like we've mentioned Unreal and how we can move some of this data from, or like the motion data from Maya to Unreal to I guess the stage. I guess why isn't this already in Unreal or I don't know how to. I'm curious, but I don't know how to express the curiosity. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I would say because of development, right?
Okay.
And plus accessibility. It's like not a lot of people have robots, but everyone has a Vibe Puck,
Sure.
So it's all about accessibility and people who are in demand of writing code for it.
Okay.
I mean, right now it's all experimental. Sure, you can play with it, but it is still pretty limited to what you can do accessibility wise. Like,
Okay.
plus a lot of people who are in production, they really don't know anything about software coding, right? So they're basically they know how to run a camera, but to ask them, hey, can you write a C++ code to run this code to Unreal? No,
Right.
So it's the demand is there, but it's not like as big of a demand that sort of like what Steve Jobs would say back in the day, right? You would show them and people would come forward to it.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
Sure. So we actually have a question from YouTube. Garrett Reviews asks, is your robots modular, and are you seeing consumer grade robots being available anytime soon?
Robots are modular. I don't know if you mean about modular as far as like, can you dismantle it so it could be one arm or 20 arms or different joints. That is not as modular as you may think, but as far as like creating a track for it, yes, the track is modular. So you can make a track longer, stuff like that. You can put anything on a robot, so that's modular. So instead of a camera, you could put a light in there, or a rig that you can put a person around it, whatever.
Okay, sure.
And as far as consumer grade, yeah, I mean, there's a couple consumer grades out there. Universal Robots is one of the semi-consumer grade robots that you can buy right now.
Okay. I know a buddy of mine had I can't for the life of me remember what it's called, but he had a little bitty robot arm that he called Dexter, I think, and he put a little webcam on it, and he could control the thing to like zoom into his face and whatnot. And it seems similar, just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, literally, this is the thing, right? You can actually create your own robot on a 3D printer.
Oh, right? That's true. Yeah.
Get the servos, which is pretty cheap, like Nemo motors and everything like that, and just rig it in Maya. And then as long that you know what the post processor is, like how to control the robot via code, then it works.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, so you could kind of dabble in this a little bit at home if you really wanted to. That's kind of cool. Are there when it comes to the Mimic for Maya, I guess the output, the way that it talks to the arm, is that proprietary at all? Do you need to learn something special there?
No. So the way they did it with Mimic is that everything is in a move, like a Cartesian space or something like that, or a Euler space. So they're by degrees, right? So 20, 30 degrees. But it also depends on the robot's architecture. So KUKA has their own language. Stubli has their own language. So depending on how you create this, all you have to do is know what that language of that robot is. Okay. And then that's how you communicate back and forth.
Oh, that seems a little rough. I imagine at some point they'll make some sort of translation, or there'll be somebody who specifically makes arms that are meant to. That way you don't have to translate, I guess.
Yeah. So Mimic does that. Yeah. So Mimic does that for you already. So we actually have one for KUKA. We actually have one for Stubli. Motorman robots, Or another thing is that some robots out there take a regular CSV file.
Oh, okay.
And they're just Euler, basically they're just Euler animations. So basically they're like, this arm is 30 degrees and the next arm is 40 degrees. So, it's kind of like a forward kinematics type of feel.
Okay. Man, a lot of this just went whoosh because I imagine Kelly, you probably understand a lot more of this than I do.
I'm following along at least.
Yeah. That's good.
I'm kind of running out of batteries here, so sorry.
Oh no, it's all right.
No, I'm gonna plug in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going back to my my college degree from, well, too long ago about computer animation to remember Euler's space and stuff.
Yeah.
That was all. Since then, I've been doing art side, like 3D environments and stuff like that. So not a lot of animating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you know a lot of math, there you go.
Yeah.
Can you hear me well? Sorry, I had to take up on.
Oh yeah, we can hear you all right. Kelly, I'm curious about your. Do you have any ideas? Like, is this percolating in anything for your?
Oh.
I know you're investigating this a little bit at home. I'm curious, is this anything that you could apply to some degree?
Yeah, I could see this being used just all over the place. Like, we're talking earlier about doing the miniatures, being able to control it at a frame by frame scenario where, it moves one frame of the film and waits for you to take the shot and then moves again. I think that could be huge because that combined with the virtual production, being able to extend your set like well beyond anything and just have that 3D versus this little set that you're actually, messing with physically. That could be huge. Just a lot of things this could be useful for.
Well, one of the things that I was looking at too is like theater applications, right?
Sure.
So in theater, with now a lot of actors and a lot of, let's just say, actors don't want to be in the same space currently.
Mm-hmm.
So what if all of them have different, like let's just say all of them are in a different room, and all of them have robots in them.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to put them in the same room together.
Right.
Yeah.
Virtually. So if I move one robot in, let's just say in one space or at home, I could literally move all robots at the same time. So they're all in the same space.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I can imagine like there being a master one. Like if you're doing an actual theater, like a Broadway theater type thing, and you wanted to use the Broadway set instead of a virtual set, you could have one that's sitting on the stage that's doing the filming of that. Then your actors in separate rooms or whatever on like a green screen with their own arms. And then that would be composited live on top of the virtuals of the real set. So it looks like they're on the stage with each other. That'd be one way to do it. I've seen a lot of broadcast people they have their own virtual sets like in a trailer. So they'll, drive the trailer out to some sporting event. The anchor, the host, whoever is in that set on a LED wall or a green screen, whatever. And then they're interviewing an athlete that's in the stadium that's standing there on a green screen, and they just composite that onto the thing. But they just typically use a steady, just one shot camera for that because they don't want to move around a whole lot.
Sure.
But this way they could have camera movements and they would sync up because the camera that's in the trailer and the camera that's in the stadium are doing the exact same movement at the exact same time, and it would all work.
Wow.
So yeah, can be so many uses for this.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. I like as you keep we're talking about it and thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, you could also do this. Oh yeah, you could do that. It's pretty cool. I always like hearing about these sort of newer technologies and ways of using, I guess, pre-existing technology in new ways. Because like, it just I never thought of that. It's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of that someone's going to come up with. They have something that they like to do in a traditional workflow. They're looking to move to a virtual workflow, and they're like, well, I can't do my thing that I used to do before. And they see this and like, oh, I can do it now, and all this other stuff. And like, yeah, it's going to set off a lot of people to do some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about, like I said, I would say the whole silver lining between COVID-19 and all the things that we're experiencing today is the fact that people are getting creative. People are pushing themselves to like, I need to work. I need to find a way to do something. So
Right.
it pushes a lot of people to think outside the box. It's like, if I don't have a studio, what can I do? What's the next best thing? Oh, I got a
Mhm.
room in my house. Okay. What can you
Mhm.
do with a room in your house? Oh, I could put a green screen. I could put Unreal. And the nice thing with all these technologies out here right now is, like, especially with Unreal, it's for free, right?
Right.
People can just download all this stuff. And then, of course, when people say, well, I don't have a 3D program like Maya or anything like that, well, there's Blender.
Mhm.
And people are, I swear, like, I used to use Blender back in the day, and it was like the most, let's just say, hurting experience. And it's just like, well, then I recently picked up, um, Blender, based on a lot of the artists that I know of, and some architectures,
Mhm.
our architectural community are beginning to use that,
Mhm.
and I'm shocked. I'm just like, wow, this is a real professional piece of software.
Yeah.
It has grown tremendously.
That's good to hear. Right on. I like, because sometimes free stuff like that tends to, or it can kind of languish in the in the shadows a little bit because there's like little incentive. So that's good to hear that. I don't. I'd just like to hear that it's so much more in a lot of these kind of professional tools are a lot more accessible than they used to be. A lot of this you can just goof around with at home for little to no cost, and that's really fun. I'm excited to see what the next like year or two, because I know a lot of this is it's still so new, it's still so fresh, and people are just learning what they can do with a lot of this stuff. And so I feel like the next year or two is just going to explode with all kinds of cool creativity.
Mhm.
I mean, to tell you the truth, robots will be, I would say, as much as I want to try to push it, will be the future of a lot of the filmmakers.
Mhm.
Things that you can do with robots, like how you can move them, how you can animate them, how you can actually make them move in miniature sets. It is pretty interesting what you can do creatively with not just with one robot, but imagine if you have an army of these things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
From lights, from moving sets. Now you can have a miniature that feels like a big, theatrical release. It's just, to me, it's cool, right?
It's
Yeah.
very exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, even in standard filmmaking, there's like a lot of times they're limited by how the camera can move and how a person can move that camera. That
Mhm.
got freed up a lot by putting them on dollies or a big boom arm to get a little better shots and stuff. And this will be just another thing to give even more options for how that camera needs to move through that scene. It could we talked about how some of them can move really fast. You could have a camera that's often 10 feet away and then like zooms right up to the actor's face in a second or whatever. That would be impossible to do with a person holding that camera.
Right.
But this a robot arm could do that, and it's stop in the right spot. So as long as the actors doesn't move, it'll stop. It just gives filmmakers more options.
Yeah, just imagine the, like, Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if Jurassic Park actually had this much technology back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it would have made a lot of compositions a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, robots have been there for a long time, but it's only been the past few years where everything kind of started melding together. It's like, oh, it's not just meant to do fast shots. It's not just meant to do a specialty shots. We could
Mm-hmm.
actually use this robot for all of our shoots, for all of our shots, not
Yeah.
just a specialty one. Like most people would think, like, oh, it's a motion capture arm or a motion control arm.
Mhm.
That's going to cost me a lot of money, and we're just doing it for one shot. No, what if I could use this for all my shots?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this so? I know we've talked a lot about like the robot arm thing. Is this sort of I guess is this technology or platform? Is this applicable to other things like drones? Could you?
Yes.
Okay.
So anything animated, right? So
Sure.
another thing that I've been exploring a lot lately is um, spider cams, or the cams that you see in football stadiums, the one on top.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's like on the
Amazing.
wires. Yeah.
Yeah, cable cams, basically cable
Mhm.
cam. One of the companies that opened up my eye to to all this is SpiderCam. SpiderCam, I would say, shout out to them. They have some really, really cool technology behind what they can actually do with real-time cable cam systems. And well, I can't say a lot due to NDA.
Oh, sure.
But let's just say that a lot can be controlled via software nowadays.
Okay.
Especially remotely.
That's pretty cool. All right, because it would make sense to me that like if because it's all just coordinates and degrees and such. So I guess that just seemed to be like the next logical step is that you could tell a little drone with a camera on it where it is in 3D space, and it can fly up over there or cruise down there or follow somebody, and that just seemed to kind of be like the next logical step for this.
Well, the hard thing about drones, right, is that it gives out air current. So if you're accurate, because there's a bunch of wind and all that stuff. So it's good for aerial shots, but cable cam systems are ultra quiet.
Sure.
There's no sound in them. There's just like a wire coming to you. It's pretty interesting when you like look at this camera. It's like, whoa, it's right in front of me already. It's really cool. It's fun to play with. So.
As soon as you said SpiderCam, I looked it up, and it's a lot more than what I expected. Like I've seen the rig that they have like at a football stadium and stuff, but they've got shots here of it looks like a live stage production, just different applications that I never would have thought about. That it makes sense now that you see it, but like before, it was I don't know. It's always very eye-opening. It's pretty cool. Let me see. Do we have any other question from YouTube or anything? No, not at the moment. I'm curious about the past. How did you have like a history in robotics or anything that led to this connection?
No.
Oh. Oh. All right.
I dedicated a year of my work to study robotics.
Say that again.
Can you hear me?
It's a little garbly.
So I actually dedicated a whole year of my career on just studying robotics.
Oh wow! I dedicated a whole year just for the robotics part.
Yeah, I do research.
Uh-oh.
That's all.
I think we're losing you, John.
Do I start my feed?
Uh-oh. I think we might be losing you.
Yeah, maybe.
Nope. Uh-oh.
I think he's gonna
no. Okay, we'll give it just a sec. This is pretty cool stuff, huh, Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, this is fun because we've spent a lot of time and all these things talking about, not to sound negative to anyone we've had, but like this is just a glimpse into something that we don't get to put our hands into a lot with at Puget. We work with just the computer.
Right.
This is giving us a lot of other things, a lot of more to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see if
are we back, John? Oh yeah. It's a little bit. It's real static.
Yeah.
Kind of choppy. This is what happens when you deal with high-end technology. You get technical problems. You know it happens. It's all right. But no, you hit on a good point there, Kelly. And because like I've been in assembly and stuff, I often was told what they were doing with it, kind of, but to see more of like the ground, like in the trenches, I guess, to use a cliche, but it's that's probably my favorite part about doing this is learning and seeing how these tools are actually being used.
Yeah, for sure. And this is getting into a lot of the like what's next, how how can we not just do a film, but what other ways can we make a film? What other ways can we get whatever shot?
Mhm.
It's just opening the door to a lot of new things to experiment with, and I don't know, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm excited to see what the next year or two brings to just the creative space in general,
Mhm.
films and animation and just every aspect of just content creation in every way. Video games, movies, even audio, music and stuff is changing and exploding in such a cool way.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of these changes we're seeing or going to be seeing soon were already going to happen.
Mhm.
They were in the future for all these different industries. This just accelerated it dramatically. It went from, oh, that's an interesting technology we should keep an eye on, to, can we use this right now? Like, can
Yeah,
we make something work?
yeah.
And I think it's been fascinating to watch various industries.
Well, I think about the progress that Matt Workman has made in just the past like year and a half. At first, it was just like goofy stuff, and now,
Uh,
there we
looks
go.
better.
Hey, that looked better.
Yeah, we're back. All right,
Yeah,
Kelly and I
sorry
were
about
just.
that. That was
Oh,
weird.
no,
Yeah.
it happens. No worries. Kelly and I were just talking about how fascinating the future is going to be, and the push for, I suppose, the necessity of the advancements. And Kelly had mentioned that some of this stuff had already kind of been in the background, but now it's there's a lot more effort being put into exploring these different avenues.
No, it's true. I mean, the hard part is really getting the developers out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The developers, the animators, the people who really who can code to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of people in the film industry or broadcast industry probably looked at robotic arms and like, that could be cool someday, and might be fun or whatever. And then now they're at home and they're like, you know what? I'm gonna dedicate my time to figuring out this Unreal, or figuring out like, how can we get a robotic arm to work right now, and then and keep working. So yeah, I think we're seeing the future sooner than we expected, because now we have A, time, and B, the demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the hard part. Like I said, it's the fact that the demand wasn't as much of a demand back in the day
Mm-hmm.
until
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It went from a curiosity to a necessity almost.
Yeah, and quickly. That's kind of what's very almost shocking, is how quickly these various industries have pivoted to the necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just what was, just like you were saying, just kind of a goof or a novelty 6-7 months ago, is now like, we have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's really neat.
Yeah, anything automated wise, you just need something to do a lot of your things without as much contact as with people, right? That's the sad part, is just like we're kind of eliminating the human side of things, but
Yeah. But that's kind of cool too, though, because like it was earlier this year. I remember talking about how there was a lot of speculation that animation was going to be going to take over a lot of content creation, because you can do a lot of that remotely and stuff. And as the year has gone, we've starting to see more and more just creative ways of keeping people separate but still working together. And man, it's endlessly fascinating. I cannot it every day, every time I do this, it's just eye-opening, mind-blowing. It is super cool.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I kind of want to do too, and still exploring about this, is concerts, right?
Yeah.
The sad part is that musicians can't play together anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I am a musician myself, so I wanted to connect with people and play instruments online.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how hard that is.
Yeah.
The technology on this is not there yet, but the latency, that's always the hard part, is the latency.
Yeah, that's for sure. That'll be cool too, to see how like virtual concerts and things progress, I suppose. How to keep I mean, that goes down a whole different rabbit hole of like, how do you keep people from restreaming like a private concert or
Right.
tickets and things like that, and the digital part of it all. But you got things like Travis Scott doing a concert in Fortnite.
Yeah.
And like, or I can see too different applications too, like you were saying about stage production, having the different actors. The visual that I had was almost, you could use the LED wall sort of thing on the stage, and everything's comped there, and you're almost watching like a live movie, I guess. And again, like, because of the cameras on the arm, and it doesn't matter that everybody's separated, it's all still seamless. Everybody, the scene moves exactly the same. Everybody's perspective is just right, because it's all a machine.
Yeah, there was a thing going around recently with Oprah interviewing Obama, and they were on opposite sides of the country, and they just basically set up two versions of the set. I think Obama was green screened, and they just put monitors where the other person would be sitting. So that way it looks like they're talking to each other, and then as they comps together in the final thing, it looks very natural, but they're in completely different states.
Wow.
Yeah, so one of the very first VR / augmented reality technologies I started playing with was, so my background too was in broadcast. So I played with broadcast stuff back in the day. Was CNN. I don't know if you remember, CNN had virtual doubles back in the day.
I remember something about that, yeah.
Oh, so every election season since like the year 2010, they created the new technology in which it's volume capture.
Okay.
It literally is someone in a different studio, like somewhere in there, like, I don't know, somewhere in Washington, D.C., and they're talking to someone in Seattle.
Oh.
But literally, they would beam someone up from Seattle to the Washington, D.C. office, and then they look like they're holograms. So if you just want to YouTube this thing out,
cool.
one of the very first projects I worked with, it's actually up on YouTube. Yeah, so it's like, if you type in YouTube and go to like CNN virtual production or a hologram, you'll see it. It's pretty funny.
I'm doing that right. Oh, wow. Okay. There's like will.i.am, TV First, election. Jessica Yellen was recorded as a hologram and beamed into the studio. That's a trip.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of the very first virtual productions / augmented reality. Let's just say this technology has been there forever, right?
Right.
Augmented reality, virtual production, it's all been there since whenever. I mean, one of the very first game engines out there, which is CryEngine, was doing this a long time ago. Problem is just accessibility. How much was CryEngine? And the fact is that how much was an LED screen?
Yeah.
It's just right now when things became like accessible, when people are like, oh my gosh, and when of course Unreal said, we're going to make this for free. So that's when things just started.
Yeah, that was, and I think that was a really smart move on their part to do that, to kind of give the tool out there and just see what happens. I think it's pretty cool.
And the nice thing is that they're open source too. Oh, there's another thing. So Mimic from Maya doesn't really just run on Maya. It's an open source engine.
Okay.
So you have the tenacity and the time to re-pluginize this to like another 3D program like a Houdini or even Blender. All the code is up in GitHub.
There you go. Cool. Right.
I'm sure like some of the bigger studios, Pixar or DreamWorks or whatever, they have the resources to do that to their own thing. combine it into their own render engine or whatever they want to do. I can't.
I know there's someone out there who would willing to take that challenge.
Oh, for sure.
Come on, do it, please.
I mean, that's kind of how this all started, right? It was just somebody who decided, like, you know what, I got some free time and I want to do this thing, so let's do it.
Yep.
So, have you guys ever seen Bot and Dolly?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go to YouTube, just type in Bot and Dolly. So, B-O-T and Dolly.
Do it. Actually, do it. Bot and Dolly. Oh, okay. Bot and Dolly is Iris, world's most advanced robotic motion control camera system.
Pretty much, yeah. So they created a show or a small little event in which it's called Bot and Dolly, and it's based on a projection. So you'll see like lines and everything. It's a black and white video. Basically, what happened was Bot and Dolly was bought off by Google.
Okay.
Their dream was they always want to open source their systems to people, but when Google bought it, it's like, we can't do that anymore.
Right.
So the guy from Autodesk Labs, his name was Evan, shout out to him. He decided to write one for Maya just because. It was his, inspiration that he saw this piece of technology for the film world in which it got missing because all the tools that were to control robots is proprietary. Right. And it hurts. I mean, for me to buy a program like, I just bought a $40,000 robot. Yay, how am I going to control it? Oh, you need to buy another $20,000 piece of software. Oh my God. Is that per year? Yes. Oh my gosh.
For a year? Yeah. It's not just one and done?
I don't know if you remember back in the day with visual effects. Remember Flame?
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Or Da Vinci. Remember Da Vinci?
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. Da Vinci, before Black Magic bought them out, it cost like $1 million.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It used to be I used to be a colorist back in the day too. So I did a lot of little mini things. But yeah, so that used to cost $1 million.
That's insane.
Yeah, some of these software are crazy.
$20 for free, right?
Yeah. Wow.
I think when I was in college, Maya was 25,000.
Yeah. Yep. And I used to remember like Adobe products, right? I used to wait like every 4 years to update my program because that's a good $5,000 chunk of change right there.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
right on.
Shout out to open source and all that technology. Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah. It is pretty funny, like I said, like how much all these softwares used to cost.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But when you're buying a robot, like I said, $40,000, yay! Okay, I gotta pay another $20,000 on top of the software. I need to make mounts for it, so it's a lot of the whole DIY stuff, right?
Sure.
And then there's other, let's just say, other roboticists out there or other turnkey systems you can buy or rent only, but you're spending close to $150,000. Plus the software itself that you have to pay yearly for maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money. Versus I could go to eBay right now, look for a KUKA robot, and it would cost me like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000.
And you're done. That's cool.
And then you get Maya, and then you download Maya, and then you get our plugin for free, and then voila, you can make a robot dance.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so we are a little bit over our hour. John, is there anything else you'd like to touch on? Any shout outs or anything you'd like to say to the audience before we go?
Any plugs for anything?
Well, what I could say to people is just keep on learning out there. Don't stay complacent. That's one thing I tell people is like, don't stay at your own little world. Try to expand, learn new software, learn new hardware. Just keep exploring and see what's out there and be creative.
Awesome. Well, all right. So thank you very much, John, for taking time out of your day and joining us. Kelly, you as well. Thank you very much for joining us. And the audience, thank you as well. Yeah.
And thank you, Puget Sound, for your computers are always awesome. Trust me, I've used your computer systems so many times, especially like doing like virtual production stuff.
Oh, that's good to hear. Well, thank you. Yeah, awesome. And we do this every Wednesday and Friday, except for the next 2 weeks because we're taking a holiday break. But Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific. Wednesdays, we bring in industry experts like John here to kind of talk about what they do and how they do it. And then Fridays, we have folks like over there, Kelly, talking about kind of the more hardware-oriented side and kind of talk about the things that we get to test and play around with internally here. So mark your calendars for that. Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, I guess that's it. We'll say goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's it.
Bye.